when we go live here in the future. All right, moving on to player number 3. This one's exciting for me, man. Lukas Van Ness, the former first-round pick, 13 overall draft pick by Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers. Now, some people are going, whoa, Clayton. He hasn't even played. He ain't even played. He's been hurt. Boys, when he was on the field, he was performing, right? We talked about his pressure percentage the other day. It has now exceeded Rashan Gary. Rashan Gary's 10th in the league in sacks with 7.5 sacks. Micah is like, I want to say 5th or 6th with 8 sacks, right? Rashan Gary's quarterback pressure percentage is at like 12.5%. Anything over 10%, you're considered, all right, you're a good pass rusher, right? LVN is sitting at like 14.5% pressure rate. So let's see what PFF thinks about him. Lukas Van Ness this year, 74.3 is his PFF grade as it sits right now, okay? That puts him ranked 27th in the National Football League. Notice some of the names around him right here, guys. Notice some of these names, okay? Right above him at 75.1, TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Above him, Brian Burns from the Giants. Dorrance Armstrong, Joey Bosa with the Buffalo Bills, Josh Sweat with the Cardinals, right? You got Ezeraku up there. He's having a phenomenal year, 79.7 with the Dallas Cowboys, somebody we talked about in the draft process a lot. So when you look at Lukas Van Ness and the company he's in here, that suggests, being in the top 32, that he's a number 1 edge rusher. It doesn't mean he's top 3, just like Carrington. It doesn't mean he's top 10 or top, or even top 15. It is what it is. Out of 32 teams, he could be a starting edge rusher on any of those 32 teams, essentially, and he'd be a damn good number 2 edge rusher. With the emergence of Lukas Van Ness, although it's only 162 snaps, however, he's getting healthy. I'm hoping we see him this Sunday. That's what I was, we were talking about this against the Giants game, or against the Giants last week. If he's not 100%, hold him out. Hold him out and let's get that guy healthy, right? So that seems to be what they've done. Hopefully he's on the field there against Minnesota. But Lukas Van Ness, if he continues to improve like he's shown this year, 14% pressure rate, right? Playing really good in the run. They like putting him at 3 tech in our cheetah package when you go 4 down linemen, with 3 of those being a pass rush specialist, right? It's typically Rashan Gary, Micah Parsons, and Lukas Van Ness. If he continues to improve, then you may have to make a tough decision on Rashan Gary next year. And I think that decision won't come in the form of, all right, we made our decision, let's just cut him. Depending on how Lukas Van Ness plays for the rest of this year, that's going to determine how aggressive Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball is at contract negotiations with Rashan Gary. If you really like what you got in LVN, you would still love to keep Gary, but you can be a little more aggressive. Like, hey, listen, your role is gonna diminish a little bit. We're gonna let LVN kind of emerge here, okay? If that's the case, here's what we want to do. We need to cut down your overall cap hit. How about we guarantee you some more money? We convert some base salary to guaranteed money in a signing bonus form. We'll cut you a check today, but you agree to lower the overall number on the backside. That way we can save some money on the cap hit. Because when you do that, that signing bonus, you can actually convert that. You can tack on voidable years. When you move the base salary to signing bonus, you can now spread that out over the duration of the contract. And that may not even mean tacking on voidable years, but you have that option as well, because we talked about there's a 3-year window open right now for the Packers to win a Super Bowl. That's why you went and got Micah. You've got everything's in place. You need to continue to get better and grow. You're still the youngest team. That's the only red flag I see for this team moving forward, as Goody's built a great young roster. But what Lukas Van Ness does for the rest of this year is going to determine how aggressive you are in negotiating with Rashan Gary's contract toward the end of the year. So moving along, how does he rank amongst the Packers defensive room? Lukas Van Ness is 4th highest graded player on the Packers defense. So you got Micah Parsons, 91, Xavier McKinney, 76, Carrington Ballantyne, 76, Lukas Van Ness, 74, Edgerrin Cooper, 72. Those are your top 5 players. So you can see he's legit a top 5 defender. Now, he's played in 5 games this year, 162 snaps. So it's not like it's a minute amount. 100 is a cutoff for me, guys. Like Tyron Hopper grading out 72.6. That's awesome. You want to see that. But the fact that he's only got 20 snaps, I've got to check the excitement at the door a little bit, right? I got to be like, okay, hold up a minute. We need to see more snaps, because that could tank. He could turn around and grade out in the 50s. I don't think that's the case with Hopper based off everything we've seen in the preseason and the limited time last year. But just using that as an example, right? So you see Rashan Gary down there at 69.6. And again, his PFF grade has gone down this year. However, with Rashan Gary, and I keep bringing Gary up because that's the decision you got to make along with Lukas Van Ness, right? There's a lot of people out there talking right now. I was listening to Wildy and Tausch earlier, and man, if you didn't know the stats, if you didn't watch the game, you would think the way they were talking, and this is no shade to them, everybody's got the right to their opinion, right? You would think that Rashan Gary is a bad football player. He's 10th in sacks. He's 5th in run stops amongst defensive linemen. He's got more run stops than Micah Parsons, and you see how many more snaps Micah Parsons has played than Rashan Gary. Micah Parsons has played in 509 snaps. Rashan Gary has played in 425, so roughly 70 snaps, right? Something like that. Roughly 70 snaps. We'll just call it 70. On 70 fewer snaps, Rashan Gary has 3 more run stops than Micah Parsons. Think about that. So, with all that being said, Gary is still a very good football player, but is he trending backwards? Is his best football behind him? Probably is. And that's the decision you got to make with Lukas Van Ness. Right now, as the 4th best defender. Just got to keep him on the field to keep him obviously healthy as well. So, let's see what Joe Pack Joe says here in the chat. Joe Pack Joe says, is it concerning the best season for Quay, LVN, and Devontae White or their contract year and just playing out of their minds for a contract instead of turning the curve? That's always a question, right, Joe? It's tough, too, because you want your players to perform no matter what year it is. But I know exactly what you're saying. It's like, okay, are they going to continue to be that player? Are they just playing with their hair on fire right now because they know, man, my football life is on the line? Could be the case. Do I think they're doing that? Based off the quality of those individuals, just what I've learned about Quay, LVN, and Devontae White, to me, they seem like a very high standard football players. The other thing, the rebuttal to that, or the opposite side of that conversation piece there, Joe, is you also got to take into consideration that they've had to work under different defenses as well. Think about that, right? They had to learn Joe Barry's 34 defense, right? And you're wondering, okay, what's the big deal there? Well, LVN was playing stand-up outside linebacker, right, as an edge defender in the 34 front, and Devontae White was having the 2-gap. So if Devontae White's having the 2-gap, underneath, basically what that means is, guys, you're not just 1-gap penetration. Now, we don't always play 1-gap under Jeff Hafley, but most of the time it's a 1-gap approach, right? So LVN had to learn how to go from playing mostly 3 tech and 4-eye at Iowa to being a stand-up outside linebacker in the 34 defense. Devontae White had to go from that Georgia defense, where I think they played a 4-3 stack, if I remember correctly, 1-gap approach, to being a 2-gap 34 defensive lineman, right? And then, of course, with Quay, similar thing, right? He was playing kind of a 4-3 stack, but he was playing kind of a hybrid backer. I remember that too at Georgia. He comes in, learns Joe Barry's defense. Well, they scrapped most of the defensive coaches. They move on from Joe Barry and bring in Jeff Hafley. Now they got to run a 4-3 principle look. Now Devontae Wyatt's got to run a 1-gap approach, right? So there's multiple ways you can look at that question. I'm going to choose to believe it's not because they're in their contract year. It's definitely not hurting, all right, because they're motivated to get that next big deal for sure. So, Turt McGirt says LV in year 3. No, let's talk about it. Okay. So here are his career numbers. Again, let's talk about this season real quick. 68, 52, 89 against Cleveland, 65 and 69. You see he's played at least 30 snaps other than the game that he got hurt there in Cincy where he recorded that sack and they had to take him out immediately. So, yeah, this is his 3rd year in the league. His career grades, 62, 52, and now he's jumped to a 74. So you're seeing a floor of 52 so far, a ceiling so far of 74, and I think we would all agree his ceiling is much, much higher than that if he continues to get better, right? So, Sean Farva in the chat says, yeah, third year, and he says they have him next year in a 5th-year option if they want it. And that was the next point we were going to make here, right? Extension or 5th-year option? That's the question. So what's a 5th-year option? If you don't know what that is, that's where you can tag a player who is a first-round pick going into their 4th year, the final year of their deal. You can hit them with the 5th-year option, which is kind of like a mini franchise tag, okay? There's numbers that's been predetermined, that'll be predetermined before the new league calendar, that'll say, okay, you have to pay them this amount of money for 1 year if you hit them with the 5th-year option, the club option. If you do that, it's fully guaranteed. So it works like a mini franchise tag, essentially. So you've got to make a decision with LVN. Do you want to give him a long-term extension, or do you want to hit him with I keep wanting to say franchise tag, with the 5th-year option? That's the question, right? So let's talk about what he's earned up to this point. 13th overall pick, boy, that used to be a ton of money. Cap hits are much, much more manageable in today's CBA. $3.1 million his first year, $3.9 his second. This year, $4.7 million. Next year, he's going to be $5.5 million against the cap. So I've been very vocal about Gary, right? Let's play worst case scenario for a second. Let's say for the rest of the season, Gary's play continues to drop off and you go, okay, writing's on the wall. He's not the same player he once was. He's done, right? You probably need to cut bait. If you cut bait from Rashan Gary, I think you're able to free up $11 million. It's a little less than 11. Let's just call it $10 million. So if you decide to move on from Gary before next year, you can free up $10 million in cap space against the cap in 2026, and you're replacing him with LVN, who has a $5.5 million cap hit. Now, let's say that LVN continues to play really, really well this year, and Rashan Gary tapers off, and you go that approach, right? Then you go to LVN and say, all right, we want to give you a contract extension, and you front load that contract because, again, you just freed up $10 million at the edge position by moving on from Gary. So you could literally front load that and make it more, give yourself more cap relief on the backside of the contract, if that makes sense. So I could see them maybe going that approach, right? B. Timmy in the chat says LVN or Gary may be the decision. Yeah, and here's the deal, man. If they want LVN back, whether Gary's on the roster or not, they'll bring him back, and you can make that cap work. You can totally make the cap work with those two players being on the team. Because I don't think LVN is going to get paid top 3 or even top 5 edge defender money, right? I just don't see that happen. He doesn't have the comp isn't there for fair market value for him to be paid like one of the top edge defenders. So you could bring them both back. But for me, it's about the long-term roster modeling, right? You don't want to pay 3 edge defenders top money. I mean, think about what Goody's done up to this point. His first year as GM, if I remember correctly, he signs Darius Smith and Preston Smith the big contracts, right? So he paid 2 edge defenders top money, right? Okay, as they started to taper off and you moved on from Zadarius Smith, what did you do? Rashan Gary rose up, much like LVN looks like he's doing. Rashan Gary gets a contract extension. You're still paying 2 edge defenders. Guys, when I talk about positions being tier 1 importance, like edge, 3 tech, offensive tackle, and quarterback, it's not because I'm so smart and that, well, yeah, that's the most important. Follow the money. That's what Goody's always paid, right? Now, he seems to have a bigger opinion of a cornerback. He paid Jair really, really good money than I do. I would rather not pay a corner top money, because if you've got the right defensive coach in place, you can scheme good coverage, but you can never scheme a good pass rush. You got to have dogs that can get after the quarterback while also playing the run really well, which is what Gary has done throughout his career. So when you kind of look at the modeling here, the writing's on the wall, right? They're not going to pay 3 edge defenders top money. You've already paid Micah. Gary's guaranteed money is dwindling down, so you can move on from him. You got to make that decision, like B. Timmy's saying here, between LVN and Gary. I think they could keep him for 1 year, right? Because, again, restructure the contract with Gary, free up cap space, give him a little more guaranteed money, and then you could cut bait the following year when he turns 29 or maybe 30, I believe. That you can kind of make that happen. But also, look who is behind Gary and LVN. Who do you got back there? They love Brenton Cox Jr. Baron Sorrell, I think we'd all agree, has been playing pretty damn good football this year, right? Did he make that list on those defenders? Let's look real quick. Baron Sorrell. So he has dropped, evidently. I thought he's played pretty good football, but he is not in the top 13 on defense for the Packers defense at the moment. So maybe he's not the guy, right? Maybe he isn't the guy. We hope he develops into that, right? But nonetheless, what you're probably going to be looking to do is find the next Rashan Gary, the next Lukas Van Ness in the draft, and spend a high draft pick on that player. That way you get that extra stud in the stable. And then as you get a little longer in the tooth, you can move on from one of these guys. Because with Micah, essentially what you got, I don't want to dive too much into his contract because we got to really look into the details and the optional aspect of it. But it's really like a 3-year window with Micah. And then you gotta really make a decision on Micah if you want to extend him, push money out, that type of thing, right? And all that comes down to the rest of the salary cap and how that looks. So, it's just very, very, very interesting to kind of see what they do at the edge defensive position and really defense in general and the overall roster. So again, LVN, there's no doubt in my mind, though, he is one of the most underrated players this year, grading out as the 4th best defender this season. So just a quick recap of those players we've talked about, and no particular order, but these are the 3 that grab my attention. Darian Kennard, offensive tackle. Why not try him at right tackle? Let's see Zach Thomas center. Let's see if that fixes the majority of our offensive line problems, right? Let's go that route. Carrington Valentine, get ready to give him a contract if he continues to play the way he has played this season. And, of course, Lukas Van Ness, who seems to be taking that 3rd-year leap. Really, really excited to see how he finishes the year now that he's healthy. Get him back on the field, and we're ready to go. So, there you go, guys. That's all I got for today. Appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat. Such short notice. I want to appreciate Tim in the background back there producing for me. Thanks so much for hanging out, buddy. It looked like you made the entire show here. So we're going to get out of here, guys. Let us know in the comments, though, what you think about Lukas Van Ness. Do you think he is one of the up-and-coming, emerging top Packers defensive players? Let us know how you feel about the 5th-year option and or the contract extension. Use that 5th-year option to just bridge the gap and get him a new deal, or do you just go ahead and say, no, he's the guy. We've seen enough. Let's get him the extension, right? And Chuck Jaggers asks here, is Bigfoot practicing? If you're referring to LVN, I'm assuming maybe you were talking about somebody else. We will get you guys the practice report update a little later today as we get the final report before we go into Packers versus Vikings. We'll give you all of the latest information there. You said Marshawn. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll get you that info later today. But anyway, make sure you hit subscribe, hit like, click that bell icon so you're notified when we go live in the future. We'll see you guys tonight, 6 p.m. Central for PTA Live. We'll continue to break down Packers versus Vikings and get you that updated injury report. That's it. We'll see y'all later on today. Have a great day. Again, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Dr. Crutch. Appreciate you. Thank you all for hopping in here and talking ball when we go live randomly like this. So my name's Clayton. This is PTA. We'll see y'all tonight. Go Pack, go.
Here we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.